welcome to the Rebel Ballerina Show, where we learn to live a kick-ass rebel life. I'm your host, Lisa Lurie, the Rebel Ballerina. There's no farting around in this show, just straight up fun. But if your ears are sensitive, go ahead and move along. If you want a truly kick-ass life, well, then here we go. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Ballerina Show. I'm your host, Lisa Lurie, the Rebel Ballerina. We've been talking a lot lately about what it is to be a fawn or having that fawn trauma response as a life pattern. And we've gone over the other side of that in looking at the takers, exploiters, manipulators. And we've heard a lot about them over the course of probably at least a good decade now. And I thought it would be good to shed some light on those of us who are kind of the opposite of all of that. We like to give, we like to help, and we're understanding. And it seems like a really good thing. And those are good traits. Those are very good traits. But it goes a little deeper than that, believe it or not. There is something behind being nice sometimes, a little too nice, a little too giving, a lot of people pleasing. And that is a huge hallmark for the trauma response part of being a fawn. So what happens? How do we end up in this place where we really struggle to stand up for ourselves? Like we really feel guilty for protecting our own being. It just is, it's so far to that way that we literally feel guilt instead of being able to just say, sorry, I can't help you this time, and leave it at that and not have any kind of guilty feeling whatsoever, because it just is what it is. Now, for us fawn types, there is no is what it is. There's only I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. They're not happy with me. I'm not able to help to the furthest extent. And that eats away at us. We are conditioned through this trauma response pattern to believe that we're not enough. We're not good enough. We don't do enough. And we could be up 24/7 taking care of other people, and that still wouldn't be enough. And on top of it, we feel guilty. It's kind of insane, actually, when you think about it. But we have been conditioned to believe that if we actually want to take care of ourselves, for once, that is selfish. That's what we've been told. That's what we've been conditioned to understand, is that anything that we need to do for ourselves, whether it is to defend ourselves and stand up to someone, tell them that you don't like what they're saying about you, whatever the situation is, we just feel so guilty for literally just standing up for ourselves. Why? Why is that so hard? There are a few reasons. A primary one literally is fear. And that's the basis of this whole trauma response pattern anyway. No matter which pattern it is, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, all of it is based on fear. And the main fear, the most basic fear that we have as human beings is abandonment. If we feel like we're going to be abandoned, we're not safe, we're not accepted. And let's face facts, we humans, we are community beings. There is no such thing as a loner, as in someone who really just goes through life completely alone and is just fine. We're not wired that way. We need each other. Not only do we need each other for what we offer, as in information, um, services, products, we need each other for those things too. But the real basic level is we need each other for relationships. We need community. We need to feel like we belong. That's how it is. That is a it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about that, as in you're not going to change that. That's just our wiring. Just like any creature has its own instinct and its own wiring. You watch the birds, they have their own way of doing things just instinctually. They know that that's what they need to do. And even they are very communal. Other animals are the same way. Every segment, every species has its own beingness. And by and large, everything has some kind of community to it. It's not just us humans, but definitely in the human world, we were meant to be together. We were meant to be part of a community, part of a family, part of a tribe, if you will. Back in the day when you had tribes and nomadic and they all moved together, people didn't get left behind. Or if they did, there was some horrible reason for it. Or if someone decided to be adventurous, then they'd head out on their own. But that's a little bit different. Typically, people who head out on their own take someone with them, for one thing. But anyway, the gist of it is that we are community people. We must have other human interaction. And that's also apparent these days with the flourishing of technology. And now we're more connected than ever through things like Facebook, YouTube, all the things that you're seeing me on. And yet, the human element of actually having that real community, one person to a next, is diminishing. It's kind of crazy. So having actual human interaction with each other in person is becoming even more valuable. Now, this, don't get me wrong, I am not knocking it. This is great to be able to reach more people through this type of apparatus. And it's been, I know personally for me, it's been super great and fun to reconnect with some friends that I lost touch with over the years. And because of Facebook and Instagram, been able to reconnect and even get together with in different times and stuff. And that's fantastic. But when technology is so prevalent that we forget to do those face to face things, then it becomes a problem, even isolating. Even though we're seeing stuff on the screen, we actually end up becoming more isolated. So our need for being with people is increasing, and it is a beingness. We need each other. And therefore, the fear of abandonment, of being left out, of being left behind, of being ignored, of being shunned, that's a huge fear. And it's always been a fear. That's nothing new. It's absolutely nothing new. But it compels us fawn types to do whatever it takes to keep everyone happy, so that means we're safe, we're secure, we're included. and we're not pushed away or abandoned. That's a pretty deep fear. It's a very deep seated fear. And for some, for very good reason. And as small children, when we start this process and this pattern starts to take hold in our subconscious, it's for a good reason because there is a fear. And a lot of time, that fear is very valid. When you're a small child, what other choice do you have? How many children, even if you have a newspaper route or like my son, adorable, at 4 years old, was selling rocks. It was so cute because he was fascinated with rocks. And I set up a card table for him with a poster, and he stood out on the corner saying, "Rocks for sale." And people bought them because A, he was so stinking cute. Who could resist that? But, he'd find these really cool looking rocks, very entrepreneurial, which I love. The point is, that didn't make him a whole lot of money, right? So children don't have access to their own cash flow and their own funds. So therefore, as kids, we are SOL. You are stuck with wherever you are because you have no other means of taking care of yourself. And when you're really, really young, you really don't have any means of taking care of yourself because you can't do much for yourself yet. Things are hard. We're not coordinated. You can't cook when you're 3. We're not coordinated. We don't understand things. We're learning, but that's why we are supposed to have parents, to do that kind of stuff and to teach us how to do that along the way as well. But it's at those ages, those very young ages, that these patterns start to embed into our subconscious. So it's at a point where, yeah, the fear of abandonment is real and valid. So I am not saying, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Of course you should feel that way. That's reasonable. The problem is we take this pattern into adulthood where now we don't have to feel that way. We can still have some fear of abandonment, and it depends on who we're talking about. Is the person that we're talking about still part of your family that you want to have a relationship with? It could be a boss that you're dealing with now and you fear losing your job. That's also a valid fear. So you're doing whatever. That people pleasing thing comes back to haunt us, though, in a severe way. There's a whole list. I'm just going to touch on a few. One, the fear of abandonment and therefore the people pleasing episodes that take hold totally diminish who we are as our own beings, as our own person. I know that that was absolutely true in my situation. And it led to a point where my career abruptly ended because, at the behest of someone else, I was deceived into a marriage. I had made it clear that I wanted to continue dancing. I was planning on dancing even after having children. I could do that. That's something we can do. I don't work in a cubicle, so it's a little different at a studio. And at least as an infant, I could take the baby there with me. And then as they start to get uh, mobile, have someone there or then have some kind of childcare. But it's definitely doable. And that's what I was planning. And I had no idea that my ex had an entirely different plan because he was a taker and he had no no plan at all on helping me continue my career. Quite the opposite. So we move halfway around the world, him telling me that there is a ballet company where we're going, and there wasn't. So when I finally figured this out and I said, there's no ballet company here, he said, well, if you want to keep dancing, you can go back to the States, but I won't support you. Well, that's just fine and dandy now that I've said vows a year prior, right? He waited until after to make this known, and I had to find out the hard way. It wasn't like there was any conversation about it. I just found out there's no company there. So I can't continue dancing, certainly not very easily. And I certainly didn't have the means to not be supported because I had nothing. I was totally reliant on him now. A very, very bad situation. And so what I did, I went into 20 years of intense people pleasing because I had to make this work. I felt like I had to make this doable. I had to make him happy. If there was any kind of chance, I don't know, maybe subconsciously I was hoping that there would be some way I could dance full time again. And I was, biding my time trying to make him happy and all that I was dealing with. It's just that people pleasing thing came into high gear to the point where I was dissolving. I was evaporating till there was barely a little tiny smoldering that finally was able to kick up, and I left because I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't play this game. It was a game. I knew that I was viewed only as a possession. There's no way I was considered a partner like a marriage is supposed to be. Not even close. I was there only to serve him, period. That's it. For whatever he wanted, to help build his career, to make him look good. That's the only reason I was there. I was not there to be my own person and to further my own dreams and my own thing that being myself. That's not what I was there for. But I didn't know that prior to getting married, which is part of my message is trying to help people see these things before getting into that situation so that they can avoid 20 years of a lot of suffering and heartache and diminishing to the point where I was ready to leave the plant. That's not a good place to be. The depression was very severe. And I don't want you to go through that. Your life is so much more than being stuck in a situation like that. So, this people pleasing thing comes from all of this fear. Now, again, there's a distinction. There's a distinction between being nice, because goodness knows we need nice, we need kindness, we need giving, we need understanding, we need help, right? We need to be able to help each other. And that is all very good. The distinction is when we go in it so deeply because it's coming from fear instead of just being able to do things for each other whenever we can. And then if we can't, we don't feel guilty. It's like, I can't do it this time. I'm so sorry. And then you move on without feeling that, oh, am I disappointing them? Oh, I think they're going to be so mad at me and all of that. And again, that's based on fear instead of just simple kindness toward each other. And that fear causes us to do whatever it takes to whatever degree to the point that we literally are almost in the grave. That just doesn't even make sense. I mean, how helpful would I be to him, and especially to my kids, if I actually went through with that? I can tell you what would probably happen from his perspective. It would have all been blamed on me. He would have said, "Yeah, she was really dealing with depression and there was nothing I could do," without realizing that a lot of that depression was brought on by him. And my kids, they would have suffered a whole lot more if I had done that. Not useful for them. So the point is, people pleasing with being in the fawn response pattern is very dangerous. It's flat out dangerous. And I really wish I could find out research. Like, I've got tons of time for that. But anyway, research into how many people do commit suicide in circumstances like this. So, in a sense, it's like the narcissist gets away with murder without actually doing a physical act of murder, because the psychological, the emotional toil and actually toll it takes on the person on that receiving end is so great that they commit suicide. I know it does happen. I just don't know how much. It would be interesting to see that statistic. How much of that is involved with these kind of relationships where you have a fawn type who feels like there's nowhere else to go and they've done everything that they can and it's not enough. It's not good enough. They still feel guilty even though they've given their all. And so the only other thing to do, the only other way to find relief, they think, is to just end it all. And I was there. I understand that. Thankfully, I didn't go through with it because now I understand how incredibly wonderful life can really be. And what I had to learn was to stand up for myself. But it's hard. It is so hard. In my program, I call it growing antlers, taking it off of grow some balls, right? Grow some gonads. That does include ovaries, by the way, for us ladies. So in my fawn world, the rubble fawn world, we call it growing antlers as a means of protection. So doing that, we're giving ourselves that distinction. We're learning how to make that distinction and discern which person is okay, is safe, that we can go ahead and give to. We don't have to feel guilty if we can't. Whoever whatever the pleasing situation is. And then learning how to discover who isn't a safe person and being able to actually stand up to them, to lower the antlers, give ourselves that space and say, do not pass this point. You stay over there. And at first, it's not easy at all. I get it. It wasn't easy for me either, but it's something that has to be done. We have to learn to stand up for ourselves. And part of what we have to learn is the reason that we need to stand up for ourselves is that we, our own selves, are valuable. We actually matter. Each person matters. And we have to undo that Klie streaming playlist, KLIE, that's going on and on in the back of the head, telling us that we're not worthy, we're not valuable, and we're only here to be someone's possession and to work ourselves into oblivion because they want that. That's what they want. Instead, we have to relearn what it is that we want, that we legitimately came here with. Like, I legitimately came here to this planet to be a ballerina. It's pretty obvious too. My boyfriend likes to say, I am purpose built for ballet. He's right. And it is a passion, it's in my soul. That's how it is. And each person has something. You might not have an obvious passion like I do, but there's something of value that you bring to all of us. And we all bring these things like a big smorgasbord to each other. And we all are able to then benefit from each other. But if you're so busy people pleasing and trying to fulfill somebody else's dream, where does that leave you? What about your dream? What about your value? And that's what we're working against. We're working against this notion that we don't get to have our own value anymore. We don't get to pursue our own dreams. We are relegated to being peons and picking up the crumbs, if you will, from the king's table, right? That's all that's left for us. Don't you feel like that sometimes? Like, ugh, when do I get fed? When does this person actually give me something? And I'm not talking about just monetary, physical gifts. I'm talking about energy, effort, attention, love, compassion, patience. Those are things that everybody can give. Doesn't cost you a dime to give those kinds of things. And yet that's what we give out so very much. But how are we being replenished? Typically, we're not. And that's a big problem. The real thing is we have to learn to do those things for ourselves. That's where we can really start to find happiness instead of trying to find happiness by pleasing everyone else. We have to be able to find happiness with ourselves. And that's a tall order, especially because of all of the conditioning. But that's the thing. What we're dealing with is conditioning. It's not who you are. It's not who you are. So therefore, if it's conditioning and you got conditioned one way, that means you can stop that and condition yourself another way. There is a way out. You can make a change. You can decide to have what you really want and to do the thing that you know that you're here to do in some way, shape, or form. And I'm convinced there really is no limit. There's no limit. Don't say, oh, I'm too old now. No, no, you're not. There's something you can do with whatever dream you have always had. There's something you can do. You're still here. So it's not too late. It's never too late. Never say never, right? I love that one. So we are dealing with a very big topic. This people pleasing thing runs deep. And we have to understand why it is so hard to get away from that. So I've given a few tidbits today, stuff to think about and see what's going on in your own life and see if you just automatically say yes to somebody in particular, even though you're feeling the anxiety, you're feeling your gut going, oh, I really don't want to do that. That's a good little red flag going on, saying, well, you probably shouldn't then. If it's not helping you, and we have to break through that conditioning of thinking of ourselves as less than. And I know that that ran super deep with me during that marriage. I was treated less than, and I believed it. I believed I was less than, which is why I ended up in that marriage in the first place. I already believed I was less than. So therefore, it was easy for me to step into that relationship because it was in line with what I believed. And therein again lies that problem of the KLIE, because that's what I believed. And it's all lies. That's why it's called KLIE. It's a playlist of lies that gets stuck in our mind, and it bases the whole rest of our lives on that. And we can avoid that, or we can at least change it. No matter how far in, I was 50 years into that and I made the changes. So, I mean, anyone can actually make these changes. The sooner, the better, for sure. The only thing you're missing is a lot of joy and happiness, fulfillment, fun, excitement, exhilaration for being here. That's what's missing. That's what you're missing the longer you wait to turn off that KLIE playlist and replace it with the K hot playlist. And that's a whole nother topic, which we'll dig into soon. But for right now, just think about what's going on in your life and how you feel. What's your natural reaction when someone asks you to do something, especially someone where you already feel that tension of, deep down, they are not on your side. They are taking, they're exploiting, they're manipulative, they're deceptive, whatever the thing is. But you know it, you really do. And we're also really good at turning off that intuition because we don't want to hear it because we're stuck in that pattern that compels us to do all this people pleasing. And how can we people please when we're actually listening to intuition that's screaming at us, no, don't diminish yourself anymore. You're not going to survive. That's what it's trying to tell you. You're not going to survive. At least not, you might not head into the grave like I was about to, but who you are, your quality of life, the thing that you could be doing that's fulfilling, diminished or disappeared. And that's not how you're supposed to live. Just not. None of us are supposed to live that way. Well, I'm going to wrap it up for today. Give it some thought. Think about who it is you people please to and the things that you're being asked to do. And just feel it out. Feel what your body says. Why is it so hard to stand up to that person? Fear, obviously, is at the base of it. Fear of what? And what can you do about it? So what? So what if there's some kind of reaction? So what? Start asking those kind of questions. Because now you have power. When you were a kid, if you said, so what, it meant I don't get food or shelter or protection, or we're adults now. We can provide those things for ourselves. So that's no longer the issue. So, what is the real issue with so what? Let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. What is the so what? Let's figure it out so that you can get on your path to living much more joy and happiness and fulfillment and honoring your own self, valuing your own self and seeing yourself as the wonderful, absolutely necessary person that you are. We'll chat again another time. Thank you again so much for stopping in and listening, and I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.